welcome to video 4, Crabs, Claws, Cancers, Neighbors, Canaanites. Briefly here speaking about ink. The plan is absolutely, his plan is to bring him into material form. It's a way for him to escape his spiritual judgment as he sees. It's really the only way for him as he sees. He knows what's coming. And it's a last ditch attempt to thwart it just a little while longer. But the plan, without a doubt, is to bring this being into material form. Let's think about the legends of our own cultures, where we've got, like the monster movies and what have you. Frankenstein comes to mind, right? A being that was formed from dead body parts, that was jolted into life by a blast of electricity and the science of some sort of mad scientist, the magic of some sort of mad scientist, right? And then you have to think about something with this Gollum guy. It's not the Gollum, but maybe in reflection in a way it is from Lord of the Rings, but there's some other Gollum or something like that with ancient Hebrew, or not ancient Hebrew, but ancient Jewish culture. And there was some sort of movie made about him, and it's talking about making this being from clay, and then they've got all these pentagrams on them, and you've probably seen it. You can check it out on YouTube under the name Gollum or something like that. I don't know. It's black and white. It's pretty interesting. It's about creating a being from the dust of the earth, if you will, symbolic of clay, everything we got from the Bible, which confirms what Jesus is talking about when he says the abomination of desolation enters into the temple. Desolation, destruction, that represents Apollyon, destroyer, Enki, a.k.a. Leviathan. Leviathan is symbolic of what? Job chapter 41. That would be sneezing and breathing, talking about rising Leviathan, now symbolic of Kundalini. And then Kundalini has what? Breathing exercises to achieve a higher state of the rising of the chakra. Now, of course, that is the path in which we see the serpent is seeking to invade the temple, now makes the body the temple. This is what Jesus Christ said, the abomination of desolation enters into the temple. Now that leaves us two perspectives for the fulfillment of his material manifest. One would be through possession, through the rising of the Kundalini, through those that were illuminated, that go to the high place. And we could see that this illumination does one thing. It connects them to what? The seal. Star tetrahedron, you see it being sealing at what? This location shrouded in the cloud, shrouded aka in the mystery. But the 13 stars are going to symbolize something very specific, and that would symbolize Ephraim, the 13th tribe. And this symbolizes Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 plus 3 is 4. The whole scenario with divide and conquer, in which the seal originally does do, and that's what they're trying to break with even more divide and conquer based upon deception of God's original intent in keeping this thing sealed to a particular form of time in which they would fulfill by putting this material being or this spiritual being into a material form. So that's the consummation. Consummation is birth, but we see this birth is taking place out of wedlock. Out of wedlock. So this picture here will symbolize the moon location being reached, and this would be the Black Widow, of course the Iron Maidens. You can see she is with child. Now to me this symbolizes the material form being taken to the high location in which the spirit identity can infuse with it. Okay, does it mean that he's already in a material form now? I can't say for sure. I know that they've been going to the moon since 1969, at least publicly, and then 69 is what? Cancer. And then 69 is Venus Ishtar, okay, sacred feminine. And then it represents as above, so too below. Represents everything that we're talking about. There's the royal arch, the elect of the Tri-Cities, with one electrode on the moon, Boaz, there's the moon there, and then one electrode here on Earth represents Jeshin. And then we see, considered with South white beauty, and then black beast, you can see the Queen of the South represent to them as Jashin, but they don't understand something with that, that's for sure. But nonetheless, if we look now, you can see we got red, white, and blue. And of course, that's the Southern Cross. We've got Sirius, Betelgeuse and Procyon, red, orange, Betelgeuse blue, Procyon white. That's the diverse colors of Osiris Orion, which is this eagle right here that you see lifting up those very same colors to the blue location, which represents the sea, the ceiling. And then this would have to be Lord of the seas, or Lord of the chaotic seas, or Lord of the bottomless pit. Now, this is pretty interesting when you get into pit, because it talks about something being hid in the field. And of course, the field is there, the field of dreams, or in other words, the potter's field, which symbolizes the moon with its pot marks all over it, if you will. Okay, and this is bringing us back to Leper King, connects us back to leprosy, and then connects us back to cancer and wasting and radiation, and which now would fulfill this symbol here where we see the nuclear fallout. But if we got Enki, Lord of the Flowing Waters, and of course we can see the connection here with that as well. There's the crescent, fulfills Rev 12, where it says her moon would be, or her feet would be planted to the moon. That's got to be the moon location. Notice that it's plate 23, sacred feminine. And then we get these peculiar Orion star configurations, which has given us the connection to two of these already being there. And we see Sirius is coming with her. So Sirius is Jashin. Where did I tell you Jashin was? I told you Jashin was here. Okay? And then I told you everything with Boaz is there. And then now you can see the connection with Boaz being symbolized right through here. And then boom and boom. And then she's coming with this. You know what I mean? Kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. So somewhere you can see this beetle symbolism come into play with the Kabbalah, which is the occult science, which would put their fallen prince into this material form right there. So I can't say that it's already happened, but I can say that the process has most definitely begun to happen. And then it could have already happened. This being could already be growing there as a regular man grows, in a body all of his own. And his spiritual essence has been injected into that. And of course he's trying to get off that thing, but he can't do it because they can't enter into the cities until they've experienced utter destruction. And that's where we see Revelation chapter 18 with that great stone throne and what they're calling the sinners. But then remember what Jesus Christ said, he was without sin, let him cast the first stone. So without sin meaning what? The very sinner himself. God is the original center, and then this fallen one is the original sinner. You know what I mean? And of course the symbolism for Lucifer represents what? Circle with a dot in the center. And that represents procession, which represents chaos, represents knocking. It represents tilted, represents leaning. Represents this symbolism of the ancient daughters of men being knocked silly in the past. Silly rabbit tricks are for kids by these ancient Anunnaki. And they knocked them up and bared this Nephilim race, which you can see this is the consummation of those crimes coming to the full. Right? Right, so this boat is not a material boat, it's a celestial boat. It's a celestial boat. There's the eye, there's the serpent symbolism. Once again, there's the red flag. I don't know if this is what we got with the serpent there. It looks more crescent moony, if you will. But of course, we definitely have the serpent, which is the symbolism for Enki. And then there, as I said, represents the beetle. That represents the Kabbalah, or at least that occult magic that's going to put him into material form. Of course, I showed you the tree of Sephiroth is. It shows you it's the 2D overlay of the diagram of a somatic cell, in which is the genesis process for the union of life from what they would believe as the etheric realms into the material. And of course, what Enki is his spiritual identity is seeking to be infused into material form. Right? So I can't say for sure if he's already in material form or not. Quite possibly he could be, but what I am trying to tell you without a doubt is that he is connected to this moon location, and that they are telling you that it looks like at least his spirit identity is resident there, and they've got to bring the material form to it. They did the material form knowledge here, but if and why would that be that way? Why would they be doing it here? Well, because this is where you're going to find the ancient remnants of these genes that they're tracking throughout the distant past. Anthropologically and archaeologically, they've been looking for it in these ancient tombs. And then when they can clone and map the genome, as they've already said, then they can initiate a physical form. That physical form doesn't have a soul. He becomes now the soul that can infuse with the physical body. He can't do that with any other bodies because they already got a soul resident. He has to be the soul resident of that material form. That was what they were chosen to do. So that's the way that I see at least the process in connection with already the laws in which we've got free will that's governed by the seal. And then we see the seal as the star tetrahedron. You can see it manifest all the way down to the atomic form of the atom, at least the carbon, 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, all the way up, as we see now, to the symbolic 19.5 circumscribed tetrahedral geometry associated with what you would see is at least the repercussional form of the magnetic field that I would call the auratic field, that is relative now to the transmutation of physical and spiritual energies upon themselves. Retranslation or translation, going into or out of, depending upon which perception you have, or at least the intention of the agenda itself. So if we were to look for confirmation now, Ezekiel 17 gives us something being lifted up as a branch being planted anew, and we can see now the connection with the tree looking thing on top of the moon, right? And then, as I said, this looks like now some sort of nuclear fallout as a mushroom cloud, symbolizing now even wormwood, which now symbolizes what? Radiation, as I said, consumption, wasting away and destroying. So if there's a remnant there, and I'm not saying that there is a living remnant there, but if there is, and then if there was, I don't think that they're doing good. And I think at least within their propaganda, coded and otherwise, they would symbolize that. As I said, the movie Guardians of Gahul, those owls, what do you see with that one owl, at least the one shown as a wicked faction? He is wearing a metal mask, hiding behind it because what? His face is falling apart. And then this would symbolize the moon as the leper king with what? All those pot marks on it. Okay? So we can see now the moon coming in connection, and once we connect this connection with these spots, we can connect it to the book of Jude a little bit better with the spots upon their feast. And we know the feast is connected now with the Jewish lunar calendar, which is now going to connect us back to the timing of the lunar tides. Or the timing of the lunar cycle responsible for the movement of the flowing waters. Now, I'm not sure if I showed you this. I'm going to try to do it quickly and then come back and further explain here some things. I was describing some sort of character that I was calling in connection with the moon, and we see it now as Hum Baba or Huwawa, guardian of the pine forest, fire-breathing servant of the god Weir, depicted with a face lined like coiled intestines, ancestor of the Greek Gorgon. His voice is the Abubu weapon, or Bubu weapon. Well, interesting. Couldn't be any more interesting. Let's get a picture of this guy to where I'm going to start showing you a connection now with the moon in its wasting consumption type scenario that it has there, even in connection with its physical look with a man on the moon that now will be connected to the leper king, which represents now the pot marks, or in other words, the potter's field, which are symbolic of what? It's symbology of destruction that's taken place from ancient times. Cyclic destruction that originated from natural occurrences that have been mistranslated scripturally as a recorded ancient past, that now they see that their own hand is supposed to enact destructions from this location and create it as a refuge for they themselves to escape the destructions that now become a portion or a part of the plan to cull the earth. And if you want to read any further about it, read the book of Leviticus and you'll see the code of sevens therein. And now we're seeing a connection with the moon location being symbolic of a grotesque form of face that we could trace back from Mesopotamian origins all the way to Mesoamerican origins. As I said, we could trace this back now to an ancient Mexican god or deity, and most likely even an ancient South American deity, which are the traditions being carried down from the ancient origins of Mesopotamia themselves, which the Asiatic lands were more unified, even with the culture of Easter Island, in which now you should understand as a remnant of the ancient Japanese that eventually migrate north, become the Eskimos, the Inuits, and then of course then form their way down through the Bering Strait and form themselves as the Native Americans, which eventually come down as Mesoamerican South Americans, which were Japanese. Trust me. So nonetheless, that would be the route, and you could see that route would be in connection with these ancient traditions from the lands of Mesopotamia, in which influence those very lands, as we can see from the connection of Easter Island. Nonetheless, I'm going to stop the video now at about the 15-minute marker. I'll be back.